Welcome to Science Alive Online. Today we will be doing a DNA extraction. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Right here I have drawn a cell, and in the center of it I have drawn something called the nucleus. The nucleus contains DNA. However, DNA can also be found in the mitochondria. However, it is less common. DNA is a very complex shape, which is known as a double helix shape, drawn on my slide. DNA is basically like a recipe for your body to look the way you do. Now we're going to think about what a living thing is. Pause the video and write down the definition you believe it is. I will now write down my definition. A living thing is something that it has living properties. So examples of a living property would be the ability to grow, the ability to move, the ability to eat. Here are some examples of living things. Number 1, cat. Number 2, a dog. Number 3 are plants. And lastly, humans. We are also living things. Now that we understand that DNA is basically the recipe that makes us look like us, write down some things you think DNA determines. Continue the video once you're done. DNA determines things such as hair color, eye color, height. DNA comes from our parents, 1/2 from our father, 1/2 from our mothers. This is why we look similar to our relatives. Now we will be doing a DNA extraction from a strawberry. These are the materials that you will need for this activity. You will need isopropyl alcohol cold. Freezing it is probably the best idea. Next, you will need 1 tablespoon of dish soap, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/3 of a cup of water, 1 zipper bag, 1 strawberry, a clear cup, and a coffee filter. If you don't have a coffee filter, you can always use a paper towel or a piece of scrap fabric. Now it's time for us to start our experiment. I've laid all my materials out in front of me. I'm now taking off the green part of the strawberry. Once that's all off, you're going to put it in your Ziploc or clear bag that you have. Now you want to mash it up as much as you can. I've sealed the bag here, but I've left a little bit of a hole so that the bag doesn't explode while I'm mashing everything up. Be careful not to mash it up and make it go out of the bag though. As I'm mashing it up, you want to make sure that it is as much of a puree as you can possibly make it. Having less chunks in there will make your experiment a lot more successful. Use different techniques and different angles in order to mash it up as much as you can and get all the big chunks out. If you have a few chunks left, that's totally fine, but you want to get as many as you can. Once you're satisfied with the consistency, you can start making your next solution. So first, I am going to add 1 tablespoon of Dawn dish soap. You can use any type of soap really, they all work, it might just be colored slightly different. Now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt to my mixture. I'm doing it in a bowl, but you can also just do it right in the baggie as that might work better for you. Now I'm just going to add 1/3 a cup of water into my mixture. And lastly, I am going to mix it all together. Once my solution is all mixed up, I'm going to open my baggie and add it directly in. You want to be really careful that you get all of your mixture into the bag and aren't missing any of the salt on the bottom of the bowl. That's why it might be easier just to add it directly into the baggie instead of using a bowl. Once it's all added together, I'm going to mix it up a little, make sure I'm happy with my solution. Generally, using a cloth works the best because the paper towel often breaks, but I'm using a paper towel because most people have paper towel at their houses. But if you have either a towel or cloth, it does work a lot better. So I've just added it into the paper towel as much as I can. There is still some left in the bag. Then you're gonna pick it up and you need to basically squish it out of the paper towel. You want to squish it as much as you can so you get as much of the strawberry juice out of the strawberry. Depending on what type of soap you use and what color it is, your solution might look a little bit different from mine, but don't worry about it, it will still work. Be careful if you are using paper towel or a coffee filter not to break through it. Sometimes doubling up on the paper towel or coffee filter does help. Now I'm just going to strain the rest of my solution into the bowl. If you accidentally drop any pieces of the strawberry into the bowl, you can just remove them with your finger before you add the isopropyl alcohol. Now I'm grabbing the isopropyl alcohol from my freezer. It should be cool enough now. I'm going to bring it back to my station and pour some of the isopropyl alcohol into my mixture. I poured it down the side of the bowl so that it doesn't directly go in, but it works either way. Pour roughly an inch of isopropyl alcohol into your mixture so you have a defined layer. If you can look at the top of my DNA extraction, you can see there's almost bubbles or a clear viscous fluid being formed. That is the DNA starting to be extracted. Now, for me, it took about 2 minutes for it to fully be on top there. It will take different amounts of time depending how cold your isopropyl alcohol is and stuff like that. You can then take a fork or tweezers to remove some of the DNA. Be very careful not to put your fork all the way in and just skim the top layer to grab the DNA. You can then put it onto either a plate, or I found looking at it on my finger actually works well because it does contrast. If you have a black piece of cardstock or something like that, that would work really well, or else simply on your finger is really good, and you can change the lighting you're in as well to get the best view you can. Here are some pictures of me holding my DNA so you can see it a little better, but the best way you'll be able to see it is if you do this experiment at home. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys all had a great time extracting some DNA from a strawberry. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and don't forget to turn on our notifications so you get updates when we post new videos every 2 weeks.